Pfizer, the second estate is Moderna, and the third estate is Johnson & Johnson. And AstraZeneca, because we don't know what's going on there.
Don't know about her.
Hi y'all, welcome back to Makeup Mystery. My name is Sydney Nicole, and I am here with my bestie, Marina.
What is that?
Marinera.
That's me.
That's you. We're here to talk about the French Revolution, and this is actually going to be our first two-parter video. So we're going to go into the first part of the French Revolution and then hit you with another video for the second part. So make sure you like and subscribe so you can catch that second part. Okay? Okay. Ooh, that's good. Yes, please. She said a little bit to it, you know. What do you know about the French Revolution already?
I mean, a fair amount. I mean, it was a very influential movement as far as like the culmination of a lot of different social movements happening in Europe at the time. But it was unique in just how broad and long lasting it was and the severity of its impact on French society.
Ooh, okay.
And it was very influential, obviously, on the formation of the United States.
Yes.
A lot of the prominent thinkers of the time that were pushing for social change in France really like had an impact on a lot of thinkers in the UK and America. Yeah, and there was a lot of folks doing a lot of crazy things.
They sure were.
They were getting after it. Not always in the best ways, but they were getting after it. Yeah. So I mean, this just bits here and there.
I have high hopes for you because you are also a history major.
Yes.
So don't get it wrong. So let me explain how this is going to work. I'm going to do Marina's makeup and tell her about the French Revolution. And throughout, I'm going to ask a few questions. If she gets the question right, we're going to use the high-end, recognizable name brands to complete whatever look I feel like doing today. If she gets the question wrong, however, we'll be using less recognizable brands from places like Five Below or Claire's or the Dollar Tree.
What do you mean? I use Dollar Tree makeup all the time.
Girl, don't play. Don't play with me. We're going to start around the late 1700s. So during this time, France was like the picture of high society, you know what I mean? France had this social hierarchy thing, and they had three estates. So the first estate was clergy.
Yep.
Are you going to be my visual? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first estate was clergy. The second estate was nobility. And the third estate was literally everyone else. Like the 98% of the population.
Oh my God.
Literally.
I'm a plebe.
I'm seen. So the first and second estate paid like almost no taxes, but that third estate was heavily taxed all the time and basically drove the entire economy, which we'll see later on was not the best of plans.
What do you mean?
Perfect.
It works for America. Anyways.
Daddy Biden, if you're watching this, get on it. So at this time, France was known as the picture of a sophisticated society. They valued art and culture and cuisine and all the finer things in life. Nobility was known to like hold these insane parties.
Me also.
It'd be like that sometimes. But yeah, so they were just known for like really indulging in the most expensive things known to man. The only problem with this is that this entire society that the nobility and clergy were enjoying was built on the backs of the third estate and the poorest and most disenfranchised peasants in the country. We are going to fast forward a little bit to 1756. At this time, France was feeling themselves a little bit, enough that they decided to start a war with England, known as the 7 Years' War. Unfortunately for France, they lost this war, and they were in financial ruin afterwards.
England was like, only dubs, baby.
England said those are rookie numbers. You gotta boost those numbers. Do you need a France was in further financial ruin, and they were trying to fix it the only way they knew how, which is just taxing the poor more and putting it all on their backs and making them fix it. The third estate was they were the ones who were driving the entire economy and doing all the work. And during the Age of Enlightenment, people started to realize that basically French nobility and the two higher estates were just screwing everybody over. So this is when collectively people were like, wait a minute, we could change these things. There was a lot of frustration with the monarchy at the time and just overall how things were working. People were like, why did we let this happen? We are gonna fast forward a little bit to 1774. This is when a new king was crowned in France at the age of 20 years old.
New king, enter the chat.
A new king has entered the chat. And we have reached our first question.
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is going to determine what eyeshadow we're using. So I'm going to show you the two options, all right? Okay. If you get this question right, we will be using the Colourpop California Love Palette.
Ooh,
she cute. She cute.
Oh, she's fun. Oh, she's nice.
She's fun. Peachy, you know. And we will be using the 35S Sweet Oasis palette.
Oh, hello. That's beautiful.
This is from Morphe. You guys have seen this a few times. She's also cute.
It's very pretty.
Also would look great on your eyes. However, if you get the question wrong, we will be using the LA Colors 16 Shadow Palette with like some golds and shimmers in there.
Elite.
The Life's a Peach palette from Five Below from W7. Or the LA Colors Blue palette.
The one with blue colors.
The blue one. It's got some like blues and blacks and it's called Supernatural palette from LA Colors. It's from the Dollar Tree. So that's what we're using. If you don't get it right, please get it right. For your first question,
okay,
what king was crowned in 1774? A, Napoleon Bonaparte, B, Louis the 16th, or C, Louis the 14th?
It would have been Louis the 16th.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
100%? Are you like that confident in it?
Why are you doing this to me?
You have time to back out if you want to. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay, that's correct.
I was like, because that's why I was like, no, I know it's right, but now you're freaking me out, man.
I'm sorry. I keep doing that. Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, because I know Louis the 14th, like he had such a longer reign, a more prolific reign of like actually like he did a lot to like get French society to the point that they're at now. So like, there's no way he would have been crowned in 1774. There wouldn't have been enough time between that because the French Revolution, as we know, it really started to kick off in like 70s, 80s, 1790. So.
Hey. So we are using the high-end makeup today because Marina knows her stuff. She ain't come to play, okay? Right. She's not messing with y'all. So Louis the 16th was crowned king on May 10th, 1774.
Oh, that wasn't that long ago.
Right?
Oh,
so he was crowned, not his coronation, but he was crowned during tourist season.
What a fun fact.
Yeah. So, you know, he was wildly unprepared, actually.
Yeah, and that happened to a number of monarchs at the time, especially because I know Louis the 14th was the same way. He was in his teens, I think.
I think he was a child and they had a regent.
Yeah, because that was and then the money thing and yeah.
At the beginning of his reign, he decided he wanted to try to get back at England by funding the American colonies in their pursuit for independence. Yeah. And he figured he would get that investment back later on and, you know, sock it to England because now they no longer have their colonies. This was like really stupid because I don't know why he thought a new country
would have money to pay back it within
immediately.
Yeah.
But like, do your thing.
Well, you know, when you're 20, what do you know?
I was dumb when I was 20, so like, makes sense.
I'm dumb now.
Same.
So
I don't think I could like rule France right now. I don't even know French. So meanwhile, while this is happening and Louis, I'm just gonna say Louis for the rest of the video, it's Louis the 16th, but Louis was like pissing away the country's money and the peasants of France were like begging for help because they were starving and everything was awful. And French nobility was still partying it up. The worst offender in this was Louis' wife, Marie Antoinette, which everyone knows.
Oh, hey, homegirl.
Yeah, she was really partying it up. She was known for being like the worst offender. Like she really loved to party it up and indulge in all the expensive things, no matter how much the country she's supposed to be like co-ruling with is struggling. So France had to figure out how they were going to make more money after they funded the colonies' shenanigans, and they did it the best way they know how. Taxing the poor.
Oh, who could have seen this coming? That's crazy.
What? Wild. There was even a labor tax where they required the peasants to work for free for a certain amount of days on their lord's property. So basically slavery. They like required slavery at one point and they called it a labor tax. So it was like every Friday you gotta work for free and that's your tax. So there was a tax on like grain or other harvest, whatever crops you had. Right. And the tax was so high that people were hoarding their supplies from the previous year and keeping it until the next year. But then they implemented a tax on that. So if you hoarded your crops, there was an additional tax. So like there was just taxes for every freaking
You're welcome,
thing.
farmers.
Of course, rebellions were popping up all over France. It was also known that the price of bread skyrocketed to a point where people couldn't afford to buy bread. And people in these rebellions were raiding bakeries and they were killing bakers that they suspected of hoarding bread. Oof. So like at this point, things were already getting kind of violent, kind of aggressive, kind of like the French Rev we all know and love. Louis was trying to do something smart and he decided to summon the States General, which is like France's other governing body. And it's supposed to be a representative body of the state's population, whatever.
Clergy and nobility and the plebes.
And the little babies. But the babies were 98% of the population. This was a big deal because this Estates General hadn't been summoned in like a very, very long time. So it was like a big deal that Louis summoned them because like he was truly losing control of the country and like everything was descending into chaos very quickly. Basically, the system was super flawed and the Third Estate was getting pissed because they gave each estate one vote. But then anytime they tried to change anything, obviously the First and Second Estate, they were going to veto everything. So when they're like, hey, maybe we should stop taxing the poor and like add taxes to nobility and clergy, clergy and nobility would just shoot it down. And like anytime they were like, oh, we should just tax the Third Estate more, the Third Estate would be like, no. And then the First and Second Estate would pass it anyway. Obviously, they were starting to get super, super pissed. And they were like, you know what? Fuck it, we're gonna do our own thing.
Yeah.
So then...
Do your own thing.
Do your own thing. So then the Third Estate formed the National Assembly in 1789 in Paris. A few of the people in the National Assembly had even more radical ideas, and these people were known as the Jacobins, and they basically wanted to get rid of the monarchy altogether. So the National Assembly, at first their goal was like, we want to work with the monarchy, and we want to have more of a voice and all that stuff. The Jacobins were like, no, we're getting rid of the monarchy altogether, like, this is the time for democracy. So at the time, of course, that's a very radical view because we're talking about Europe where everybody is in a monarchy. Like this is a big deal.
Because at this point it's 1789, so they would have seen that America had just formed like their own system of government and they were establishing their own constitution there. Yeah. So this like movement of democracy is still very radical, even like for the colonies to have had a revolution where they won against England, who had just beat the crap out of France not that long ago and is a global superpower. Like having that happen was like those coexisting, knowing that like on the global scale there's this like new shifting change that is like very far overseas, but like this idea that it could come to France and like come to fruition.
But it's also like still such an experiment and stuff. Yeah, like we don't know if America's going to be successful.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah, like it's been just over a decade or so since like things started rolling in America, and it's like you don't know if this is going to work. Like this could crash and burn in 5 years and England can have it back. We have no idea. Yeah. After all of this happened, Louis decided to respond. And this is our second question. This will determine whether or not I can continue using my Morphe Eye Obsessed brushes like I want to, or if I have to finish this look with Q-tips.
Oh. Okay, so lay it on me.
The question is, how did Louis respond? All right?
Okay.
All right, so A, he sent troops to surround Paris. and like intimidate the Jacobins. Or not the Jacobins, the National Assembly. B, he listened to the National Assembly's concerns, sat down with them, gave them attention, listened to their concerns. Or C, he ignored it.
My gut says he ignored them.
Okay. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Damn it.
that answer is incorrect. He actually decided to send troops to surround Paris, which means we will be using Q-tips for the rest of this. All right, so.
It's a Q-tip.
She's here. So Louis sent troops to Paris and they surrounded the city, which obviously caused a panic because everyone was like, oh, they're going to arrest and likely execute people in the National Assembly for meeting and demanding that the king listen to them and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Of course, this also caused panic in the streets because people are like, oh, we have a National Assembly that's like actually listening to our concerns and made of people who are from our estate and they want to listen to us and blah, blah, blah. And now they're going to get murked. So, of course, people were freaking out because they were like, well, if we supported the National Assembly, do we get murked? Like, what is going to happen to the city now? Are we going to like full on bad crap? And like all around there was panic. So this was probably not the best move for Louis because like everyone started freaking out. Fed up and scared, people from the Third Estate fought back and they decided to create their own militia. So now this is where things are turning because not only is there like anger and violence happening, but we're like seeing steps towards serious organization. We have a governing body, we have a militia happening, you know, there's information going out. Like there are steps to like really get stuff going. On July 14th, 1789, shit like really hit the fan. So some people of the Third Estate who were rebelling against the monarchy stole rifles from a military hospital. Unfortunately, these rifles didn't have any ammunition in them, but they knew exactly where they could get ammunition. They could go to the Bastille.
Yo.
So the Bastille was like kind of a French prison, but also a fortress. But in general, it symbolized the entire monarchy. Like it was this stronghold, this fortress. It symbolized like the grip that the monarchy had on the people. They surrounded the Bastille and they actually killed the governor who was inside, who was guarding it, and put his head on a pike.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah, it's getting violent. It's getting, well, not even getting, like it's violent at this point. We are here and it's violent and it's aggressive and people are pissed off. The National Assembly had a choice to make. They could condone the actions and be like, no, we still want, you know, peace and we want to try to achieve this through, you know, negotiations and writing and intellect and, you know, still work with the monarchy and whatever.
Sure.
They have that route. Or they have the route where they can accept it and congratulate the people who did this and accept that like violence is going to be a strategy that they implement to get what they want. They decided that they were actually going to accept this and praise it. And that set the tone of normalizing the violence that would later come in the whole French Revolution. So in August of that year, the National Assembly wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen with the help of a very important American thinker. This is our third question. This will determine if we use the Lancome Monsieur Big mascara, which you guys have seen on this channel. It's one of my favorite mascaras. I love it so much. Or if we'll use the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise mascara. So, I mean, this isn't terrible, but like, this is the big girl, okay? Just saying.
Okay.
Your question is, what American helped to write this declaration?
Okay.
A, Benjamin Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
B, George Washington. Or C, Thomas Jefferson.
It's Jefferson.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't know a lot about it, you might be tempted to say Benjamin Franklin because he did spend quite a bit of time in France.
Yeah.
But he's not known for being the one to write, you know, like any constitutions like our homeboy Tommy J.
Tommy J. out there.
J.
That's correct. We will be using the Lancome Monsieur. Yes. Monsieur Big. Oh, that's fitting because it's like kind of French. Or something like that. Meanwhile, the French peasants were still pretty pissed off. I mean, yeah, we're writing declarations, things are happening intellectually, that's great and all. People are still starving and things aren't getting much better for them right now. On October 5th, 1789, it started with a group of women, but like as the march progressed, more people joined. A large group of thousands of people marched to Versailles to talk to Louis. The monarchy lived in Versailles. It was miles from Paris. So they were like, you guys are not seeing what we're seeing. You're not experiencing what we're experiencing. Like,
Sure.
You guys need to see this firsthand.
Yeah.
So they marched to Versailles to like talk to Louis to be like, you guys need to like see what we're going through.
Right.
When they reached Versailles, they almost killed Marie Antoinette, but she escaped out of the back room like last minute and avoid being killed. This is where we got the iconic line of "let them eat cake," because they were like, she was like, why are people yelling at us? You know, what's going on? And they're like, well, they're upset because they're poor and they can't afford bread or whatever. And that's where she was like, well, then let them eat cake. Which was like, just showed how out of touch she was. It was like, bitch. So after all this went down, they got to Louis, and Louis actually agreed to give away some of his power to the National Assembly and to return to Paris and rule from there instead of Versailles. So it was pretty successful. Like, you know, that they got a good portion of what they wanted. So over the next few years, the National Assembly slowly acquired more and more of Louis's power. And eventually he started to become just a figurehead, really, as like France kind of descended more into a constitutional monarchy. Louis, after a couple of years of seeing this happen, he saw the writing on the wall. He knew what was happening. He decided that he was going to try to flee France with Marie Antoinette and go back to her home country of Austria, and then try to retake France from there. This was not at all successful though. In June of 1791, he was caught trying to leave and he was brought back to Paris. This was bad because now people are like, oh, so we know that you are not about this revolution and that, you know, you're gonna undermine us. There's no working with you anymore.
Yep.
Since the king didn't support the revolution, people started getting pissed. And that is where we're going to leave it for part 1.
Wow.
I know. Sorry, no heads are rolling yet. But come back for part 2. I'm living for this blue moment.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. It got a little messy around here. Couldn't blend well, but Q-tips.
Q-tips, baby.
So I'm excited what we did. You knew your stuff. I mean, you only got one wrong, so that's okay, you know. Making it work. So that is it for now, y'all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Listed down below is all the makeup that I used on my face and all the makeup that we used on Marina today. I also put my research down below so you can see where I got this information. Don't go too far though, because you know, we still gotta talk about the rest of the revolution. That's it for now, y'all. Thanks for stopping by. And remember, don't make up your history.